The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Green Acres and our guests. These general gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all label directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. And away we grow. Hello there, and welcome all you beautiful gardeners and green thumbs out there. Welcome one and all to the show. This is the Green Acres Garden Podcast. I'm Kevin Cactus Jordan, back in studio for another great episode. I got Austin to my side on the keyboard. What's up, Austin?
Hello, Kevin, and welcome back to all of our listeners. It's the best time of the week. And Kevin, we are talking a very cool category of plants this week, one we don't always touch on. What are we talking about this week?
We're talking about a group of plants that are rugged, hardy, not water thirsty, heat tolerant, just neglect tolerant in general, and still gorgeous and beautiful and quite interesting. The plants we're going to discuss this week, Austin, seem like they're from another world. You know, plants to me already are interesting and kind of unique and funky and weird. But today's category is a category of plants that kind of push that to the limits. They are the weirdest of the weird in the best possible way. And these are the plants that are really unique and will catch your eye. And of course, I'm talking about cactus and succulents. We met up with our good friend Dave Roberts out at his home in Sacramento, California. And he lives in this beautiful little home, a modest little front yard and backyard, but he has in there the most beautiful collection of plants. The front yard, Austin, as you know, it's a gorgeous remodel of where they ripped out all the lawn. That traditional landscape is gone, and now it's trees, tall trees, short trees. There's edible trees. He has an espaliered lemon tree out there, a Meyer lemon espaliered between him and his neighbor. That's this flattened tree where it stretches many, many feet either direction, but the other way, it's only like a foot thick. Filled full of fruit.
So cool.
Pretty cool. Do you see the passion fruit he had out there?
Yeah, there's so many just low water usage plants. You know, we're always looking for yards that are examples of low water because people don't believe that it can look awesome and lush and be filled with pollinators, right? But Dave's is a great example. So if you actually want to see what a summer strong yard can be or a water-wise yard can look like without a lawn, check out Dave's. And we were there. We got a great interview with him, and we also shot a really cool video for our YouTube channel on the Green Acres Nursery and Supplies YouTube channel. So go ahead and click to that. Hopefully it'll be all set up and ready to go. Look in the episode description, and you can take a look at Dave's front yard, which is so beautiful and stunning. Plus, he shows off his incredible cactus and succulent collection. So let's go ahead and jump into our interview. We sat down with Dave at his home here in Land Park, Sacramento, California. Let's go ahead and jump into that interview now. Here we go.
I love cactus because so many of them are just out of this world. They're strange, they're interesting shapes, forms. They do things like twist and crest. It's just fantastic variety of plant life.
Now, a lot of our listeners, I think we're very much magnetized and kind of we're connected to our flowering plants, our marigolds, our zinnias and cosmos and roses and whatnot. We love that color. Can you actually get color and flowers from cactus? I think people maybe have some misconceptions.
Cactus do bloom. I must warn people that they can be very spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
But very short-lived. Others, some smaller ones, gymnocalaciums, rabusias, they will have a much longer bloom period because they've got masses, much more flowers. They tend to be early summer. Some of them will bloom on and off again through the summer, but they pretty much are done by end of August. But here's the way I see it. You can have pots of annuals your zinnias, your marigolds, whatever.
You've got a few here,
And
I see,
have
yeah.
a few here you can see. Coleus, nice color.
They're beautiful.
And those are pretty water intensive. They like water in this heat every 2 to 3 days. But these cactus and succulents balance that off by being watered only every 2 weeks. So you can have all these cool things and your color, and you still will probably be saving water.
Just walking through your home, David, your landscape is gorgeous, and I got to say, it's not a particularly large space. I think a lot of people sometimes we go, oh, I don't, I want to create a garden or do something with my landscape, but I don't have a big yard, and I don't have this large canvas to work with. Your canvas is somewhat on the smaller side, and I got to say, you have filled it in beautifully like an artist. What were some of the techniques? Like, how did you do that? Like, it's so gorgeous here.
Well, Kevin, I was a landscape designer and contractor, and I did a lot of small landscape designs right here in the Land Park area. This size yard is not unusual for this area. And the thing that's important is that you've got to realize that you will see absolutely everything in a small garden, but you still need focal points. For instance, we've got the fan aloe out in the middle of the patio here.
Specimen.
When you walk into the backyard and through that little area there, you spot that immediately. We have the fucrea, which is tall and spreading and a whole different form than a lot of other things. And then, of course, to top it off, the huge staghorn. Now, one of the tricks of being in a small landscape is to go vertical. You cannot spread out and have huge bushes, giant trees. So you need to take use of walls and build pergolas, like holding the staghorn up there. And the staghorn has got plants underneath it even. Ferns.
And above it.
And above it,
yeah.
yes. I have
that passion vine? Yeah.
The vine helps shade it, and the vine loves the beating heat even.
Now, let's work through some myth busting a little bit when it comes to cactus and succulents?
Sure.
First, what is the main difference between a cactus and a succulent, or is there a difference?
All right, there is a difference. But first of all, cactus are succulents. Oh, God, now what? I confuse you. But
so what is a succulent then? How do we define a succulent?
The succulent is a plant that stores water in its own tissues, roots, the stems and leaves. Now, the difference between a cactus and a succulent, which some look almost, they all have thorns maybe, and they're spiny, and people always are calling euphorbias cactus. But a cactus has a small little area called an areole. And if you look along the ribs usually of cactus, you will see these little areoles. They're just a spot almost. Sometimes it's a little hairy. Sometimes it's white, usually white, and can be very small on the small cactus. But that is unique to cactus. From that appendage, you get leaves, you get flowers, you get thorns. So that is the difference.
So those areoles are like just site for all the different growth.
They are
and things.
like that hot spot for growth.
And you won't get that on succulents.
You do not get on regular succulents. Succulents, the euphorbias, they grow the thorns right out of their stems.
Can a cactus get too much sunshine? Because you always think of them, they're desert plants. Some can be really tolerant of the heat and the dry conditions for sure. But are there cactus that are better for the sun, some that do better in shadier conditions?
Absolutely. For starters, little seedling cactus are very sensitive to high heat, and they usually end up growing either in the shade of their mom or under a big bush or something like that until they mature to a size. And oftentimes they will just, by virtue of the environment, end up in a shade of a bush, like a creosote bush or a big cholla, or maybe a saguaro even.
So in nature, that's how they would kind of get started?
In nature, that's how they would get started. They could even be shaded by a rock.
And drainage, we found out, is really important to cactus growth. Does elevating your plants with the hardscape, does that help in drainage, or is it also important just to what kind of soil you're using as well?
Well, it's a little bit of both here. Now, a lot of those rocks actually had a secondary function, and that was to help elevate the beds. And when I built that bed there, we actually rototilled about a foot to a foot and a half deep, I think, and we actually threw the soil up on the sidewalk. And then we got the track fines red lava, and we mixed it 50-50 with that. And so we had increased the volume of soil. And when we put it back, and we first put some of the very large rocks in, later the smaller ones after the soil was there. But that built up the bed another 6 inches or so, and that's the kind of drainage, the soil type and the elevation that really makes, cactus and succulents in the ground work.
Why is it that cactus really respond well to fast draining soils, and they don't want to stay soggy or inundated with water? Some plants kind of like that. They appreciate having wet feet a little bit, but cactus certainly don't, right? So why do you think that is?
Absolutely not. They're very susceptible to root rot. And any kind of excess water, like when you have excess organic material, like in a houseplant soil, they just love all that organic material. That's how they thrive on all those nutrients from there. Cactus succulents, low nutrient users, and they must have immediate drainage. They will quickly, their roots are not deep, they're not tap roots. They literally are there waiting for the water. When it
shallow, fibrous
shallow root, very fine fibers often. And then they will have maybe a big, large section. Some of them actually will get a large ball growth, and then they'll store water in that. Or in the case of large cactus like saguaros and all, they're bringing water up into the whole carcass of the plant.
When are we going to get you a saguaro?
I have one.
yeah, of course you do.
Not very big.
All right, we'll wait a little bit.
We'll wait another 100 years.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think are some of the best cactus for a beginner grower to start out with? Someone who's maybe for our climate, it's really hot here, zone 9B.
If you want some cactus, there's plenty of stuff available in the nurseries. And if you're looking specifically, I always like to say Echinopsis. You can have small ones, and then they'll give you a great
so pretty.
bloom. Yeah. Sometimes there's mammillarias are very easy. Usually, they're probably one of the more tolerant plants. Most of them, not all, but many of them are very tolerant of a little bit of excess water. And then, of course, I'm really partial to the gymnocalaceums. They're called chin cactus, C-H-I-N. And also, going back into the succulent area, some easy plants are like mongavis. We talked about it in our interview earlier about their cross between an agave and the manfreda.
That's this one over here,
right.
Yeah. Spotted leaves.
Spotted, wavy
Look
leaves.
how tall those flower spikes are, David.
Yeah.
Those like 4 footers.
Yeah, those are 4 footers.
And the plant is only 6-8 inches tall.
Right. I had one called Spotty Dotty over here, and I've got the babies over behind. And it had a flower spike that was probably 10 feet tall.
Wow.
And here's this plant that's maybe no more than a foot. But, they give you this wonderful spotted, wavy leaves. Even after they flower, many of them will pup along the base and you'll get a new plants. So a very easy plant. When you move into things like agaves, you have to have more patience. They are slower. We're looking at a Victoria Reginae here, and I've had that cactus over 30 years. I've taken 2 pups off of it, And every time I look at that, I'm thinking, anytime now, Dave, anytime it's going to bloom. But
Today is going to be the day.
So, you know, for fast gratification, it's important when you first get something. Those cactus and the mangavis. You know, there's a lot of other soft succulents that are really easy as well. Sedums, echeverias. Both are pretty easy plants.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, this one's not a cactus or succulent, I don't believe, but I think it fits in well with your low water garden. The ponytail palm.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And yours is pretty impressive because I usually don't see them in a landscape quite so large.
Mine is 50 years old from a gallon
There we go. Yeah, older than me.
Now,
I like
a lot
that.
of people buy them as house plants, but that plant is thoroughly hardy. Has grown outdoors as long as I've owned it in pots and boxes and tubs. But it's got a beautiful drooping, thin, narrow leaves like a palm. And it'll get a gorgeous spike of flowers. It's a spike about 2 feet long and kind of a cone. And it's got probably 100 individual little flowers.
It appreciates the same level of care that the surrounding cactus are getting?
Everything in that bed gets watered every 25 days, and it only starts in the 1st of May, and the last watering will be the 1st of October.
And that's a drip system, micro sprays?
It's a micro spray.
Yeah, I saw those. That's nice.
The little pop-up ones are really nice. You know, you don't break them as easy.
Yeah, it gives you good coverage, and
I think it's great coverage. I do consider them for more of a dedicated gardener because I put filters on the valves because they clog easy.
Oh, yeah.
And I found years ago that the earwigs would crawl into the vacuum part of those valves, and it would get sucked down and then they'd get to clog your drippers or your sprays. So you have to have the filter on there. You don't have to have a pressure reducer, but you have to have a filter.
So you said you water once every 25 days.
Every 25.
And now is that throughout the whole year? I know we get winter time, so when do you cut off and when do you start?
Start the 1st of May, and the last watering will be the 1st of October.
There we go, because things are cooling down then.
And if I see cooler weather on the horizon, because sometimes October stays pretty warm.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But if I see a cool spell coming, I will just shut it down. That's it.
How important is soil for a cactus? We know they're really durable. They're low maintenance plants for the most part, but how important is getting that soil mixture right for them?
Soil is critical. The perfect cactus mix is soil that the water will drain right through it almost immediately. Just there long enough that the roots can pick it up and store it. You really don't want soil that remains wet. So you start out with your either pumice or red lava, and then I only have 1/3 of the mix is organic potting soil like a thing. Most of our speakers and our people in the Sacramento Cactus and Succulents Society, we recommend taking a normal cactus mix you might buy at a nursery and mixing in more pumice or red lava because they're still very heavy on organic matter. That's the secret.
Drainage.
Drainage.
Absolute
drainage.
Now, fertilizing, a lot of episodes recently, we're talking about fruit trees and we're talking about, vegetables and all these heavy feeders, roses, and they really require a lot of nutritional support to really be at their best. But cactus are a totally different thing altogether because they tend to be a bit more slower growing. They're not blooming quite as heavily or fruiting quite as heavily. How do you fertilize them? How do you enrich the soil? Do you provide them nutrition, or do you just say go at it and get what you get?
When you have them in the ground, you probably need to feed less than when you're in pots. Because when you put nutrients into the ground, even a well-drained, it's going to hold that nutrient. Whereas pots, you're watering more regularly, and you do need to feed. But I particularly use liquid feeds. I like to use very low nutrient level organic liquids. And some people even say to cut them in half.
Just dilute it even further if you have to.
The old nurseryman comes out, and I like growth.
Yeah, you
a
know
little
it.
growth is good, but it's timing too. I mean, you don't start feeding the day you take these out of the greenhouse because they're not really waking up that quick. So, you know, a light feeding, light watering, and then maybe 2 waterings later, like toward May, I give them a feeding. And then another feeding in May, end of May. That usually sets you up for the time that they start blooming, which is early summer.
So they have that nutrition
And
heading into that bloom cycle.
Yeah. I'll probably feed once more in like August. And it's just sort of, well, okay, I need to feed everything else. I'm going to feed the cactus.
And you're just fertigating, right? You're just fertilizing while you irrigate?
Right.
Oh, that's nice.
I just use a proportioner, 16-to-1 proportioner.
And that just blends in the
it sucks,
fertilizer into the water?
Mixes the water as
That's
it comes
nice.
through. The other thing that I do simultaneously with every watering, whether it's feeding or not, and the other plants don't care about it at all, and that is I acidify the water. I have 7 pH water. What you're trying to get your pH of your water down to is anywhere between 5.5 and 6. I've kind of landed on a formula that generally gets me 6. I think with the fertilizer, I'm probably getting a little less because that acidifies a bit. So that with the acidifying with every watering will keep the soil more acid. And most cactus succulents are less important, but most cactus like it
a little more acidic.
Side. Yeah.
Last words for anyone out there who's listening right now who either already loves cactus or is considering bringing cactus and succulents in their own gardens. What are your last words of encouragement for them?
Number one, just don't be afraid to kill something. All of us, anybody who says they've never killed a plant has never grown a plant. Secondly, join something like the Sacramento Cactus and Succulent Society. We welcome beginners, people who have, just maybe they have a couple of cactus and succulents and they think they'd like to learn more. It's a way to find birds of a feather. Is join a group. I don't care if you're into roses or whether it's begonias. There's a club for everything. And there is so much knowledge in these people. And it's generational. It's got to be passed on, It's
Hear, hear.
So, this is my word about gardening is just pass on whatever you can. I mean, I meet young people going by and they talk to me out in the garden. And it's really gratifying that they want to stop and they'll listen to this old guy talk about, how to make a garden look cool. So that's my last words, and I really appreciate your coming by today. It's been a lot of fun.
I've loved it, Dave. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
All righty.
All right, we're back from our interview with Dave. Thank you so much to Dave. What a delight to see your collection. It's stunning. Some of these plants were so old and big and large, and normally you only see them when they're little small things, right? Such a great time. And again, if you want to see this stuff, go check out the video. We shot a video there. It's on our YouTube channel. I'll put the link to that in the episode description. Give it a look because it's really cool. You get to see this stuff and learn from Dave. But Kevin, I want to share with you my plant of the week.
Oh, you got a plant? I like it. Okay.
I've got a plant of the week. Normally you get to share a cool plant of the week, but I have one this week because it's literally stuck in my mind and maybe in my body still. I was kind of bit a little bit by one of the plants in Dave's landscape. It's a cholla. And it's such a beautiful and stunning plant, but I'll never forget it because it literally, I brushed up against it and I got all these little prickles, these little barbed bits from it easily stuck in me. And thank you for helping me to pick them out.
I was going to say, yeah, I know exactly what they look like because I had to pull them out of your, not quite your backside, but close as a person wants to get. But hey, happy to do it, bud.
Thank you so much. That
Cactus
was a very
brothers.
close moment for us. But such a stunning plant. You know, that
Beautiful.
cholla specifically, you can see it in the YouTube video, but also I was moved by it had flowers on it, but which were pretty, right? And we didn't even see them when they were in bloom. We
Kind
saw
of fuchsia pink.
Yeah, we saw them when they were kind of wilted away, but also at the same time there was fruit still on there from last year. So this thing, it doesn't look like it's going to have beautiful flowers, but then all of a sudden it's got fruits and flowers, pretty colors shooting out of it.
Well, and the structure of this plant looks something out of like, I don't want to say a nightmare, but it's all segmented like a person. Like it has arms and limbs, and it kind of comes up vertically and has incredibly unique structure, I would say.
Right. So if you want to look for something really cool and different, check out the cholla.
Just don't back up into it.
Yeah, just keep your distance.
I love it. I feel like whenever I'm in a cactus garden like that with all these beautiful and mature cactus kind of established already, it forces me in a good way to kind of slow things down a little bit. I'm a little hyperactive, got high energy.
I should have slowed down more.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No, but you were walking backwards filming, you know, all forgiven. But for me, I was like, I like that feeling where you have to you're kind of forced in a way to slow things down, take a beat. For me, maybe take a deep breath, which I know never do enough. And I love that. And I think that for me, the gardening, sometimes I'm always in a hurry. You know, got to harvest, got to do this. Oh, I'm weeding, or I got to get out of here. I got to go pick up the kid. You know, there's always something, right? But in that garden, we were just having fun. Dave was so enthusiastic, and seeing those kind of not dangerous, but those pokey plants, they're formidable. And so just for me, it slowed me down a little bit.
I think I agree.
And I love that.
So something about the scale too. Like some of these plants are smaller and there's more detail to take in a smaller space, right? We're maybe used to looking at bigger plants and stuff, but this is really, there's a lot to see in a little bit of space. So you do have to take your time to appreciate it all. And wow, that's just part of the magic and the fun of this type of plant. How cool is that?
Well, another fun week out there. Austin barely made it out alive.
Yeah.
He had a few thorns in his side, and it was a great week. So thank you to our host, Dave Roberts. A huge thanks, the biggest thanks to all of you listeners out there. We love having you here, so please come back next week for another garden adventure. Until then, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. And please, never stop growing.